paved it for you. Open up the dirty window, let the sun through it. Ain't no one there you cannot find. Reaching for something in that distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibition. The rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Trust yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Trust yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still out there. Staring at the blank page before you. Open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you cannot find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibition. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Trust yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Trust yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still up there. Oh, the rest is still up there. The rest is still up
We're really very especially glad to have our friends from the Memphis School of Servant Leadership with us as a part of their Intentional Sundays. I didn't realize that I would know as many people that are a part of the group as I do. But we are very, very, very glad to have you with us at Open Heart. Hope that you do feel at home and feel welcome here, because as we sang earlier, your soul indeed is welcome here. And all of you are welcome here. This week, I had a meeting at the library, Robin. And as the meeting was about to end, it was in the evening. It was an evening meeting, and it was dark by the time we finished. And as we were making our way down the elevator and out the door, ready to go into the parking lot, I noticed that several of the women that were with me had started gathering together, talking amongst themselves and trying to determine where everybody was parked. And so when we got down to the main lobby, they came over to me and asked me where I was parked. And I'm still not catching on what was going on, but as we got closer to the door, one of them turned to me and said, well, you know, things happen out here. And she proceeded to reach into her purse and pull out her mace and stick it in her pocket. And then as we started in the parking lot, I began to remember hearing a news story about an incident where a man says that some teens vandalized his car in the parking lot. And I thought to myself, now, had that not ever been publicized or anything ever happened, would these women have, just as they had in the past, walked straight onto their car, got in their cars and not paying any attention, not making a big show of pulling out mace or anything else like that? And I thought about that. I thought about how lately in Memphis, a lot of the emphasis and things that you hear in the news are about these mobs of teens or thugs that are going around and creating all of these incidents and everything like that. And I was really disturbed by that. It really did something to me. And as I walked, and it turned out that we all were parked in the same general area, and everybody got in their cars and we rolled off. But I kept thinking about that. And then I realized wasn't immune. Because the next evening, as I got home and I got out in my car, and I looked down the street and there was a collection of young men, teenagers that were at the other end of the block, and they were out in the middle of the street, and they were gathered together in a big, circle and everything, and they were talking amongst themselves, and then they split off and started to disperse, and some of them turned and started walking down toward where, my house was and all of that, and some things started flashing through my mind, wondering what they were doing, when all of a sudden, the group that was coming toward the house turned around and they faced the others that were the other way. And I noticed something in one of the young men's hands, and as he leaned back and tossed the football in the air, I realized just how important it is that we take a hold of the narrative that is happening in our community. And that we begin to see differently. That we begin to understand differently. And based on the teachings that we follow here at Open Heart, there's some things that can help inform the way that we see things. And I think it's really, really, truly important that we understand that. And so as I thought about that, I said, well, one of the things that's really important, and I know that those of you that are visiting have heard us talk a lot about God in you and the God presence and all of that. One of the ways that we approach that is we do something that we call double think. And double think is really, the way to kind of illustrate it for you. What's this? It's not a trick question. It's a cup. And if I take this cup and I fill it with water. Water right now. It becomes a cup of water. In other words, that the composition of this, it once was a cup and now it's a cup of water. What's on the inside changes our perception of the whole thing. It identifies now the whole thing. And now it's not just a cup, but it's a cup of water. And when we say that we are expressions of God, what we are simply saying is that what emanates in and through and as us is God. And that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But ultimately, the truth of who we are is that we are expressions of God. Double thinking. We see the outside of the cup, the container, but we also see what it contains. So that when we look at one another, and as we did earlier this morning in the moment of fellowship, when we saw one another earlier this morning, we looked into one another's eyes and said, I greet you, I bless you, I see God in you. I see the outside, the container, but deeper than that, I see the essence of what's inside of you, and that's God. And we have to ask ourselves that as we talk about changing the narrative in this community, what it takes for us to begin to understand that each and every individual is an expression of God, a unique and individualized expressions of God. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit there's some people that it's really hard to see and to say that about. So I don't want you to think that I'm standing here and talking, in some kind of Pollyannish kind of way, that I love everybody and all of that. There are some people, if we're really, really true with ourselves, that it's tough to say that I see anything in them, much less God in them. But the idea is that each of us is that expression of God. And what so often happens, the people that we see acting in ways that are unlike that are because they just don't know, or they act in other ways that they choose to act, not to allow that expression of who they are to come forth. And so it becomes important for us to then also understand that we live in a universe that is permeated by the presence of God. And as we, as unique individualized expressions of the one think our thoughts. We think our thoughts into this vast creative power that then shapes things, and then influences things, and then molds things. It is the kind of thing that we talk about. It's not necessarily what you see, it's what you get, it's what you expect, it's what you get. Eric Butterworth, who's one of the great New Thought teachers, tells the story about a woman who was a school teacher years and years ago, who had been assigned some of the roughest students in the school. And so when people heard about that, and year after year, she seemed to get that same assignment, some of the roughest ones in the school. And years later, someone decided to go back and connect with some of those young people and see where they were. And they discovered, amazingly, even though they had the label on them, that they were rough and that they were, difficult and all of that, that the vast majority of them had actually been productive and had lived lives and had careers and made contributions and things that were really, really great, and that really, really didn't go with the label that had been assigned to them. And the only constant that they could see was that teacher. So they finally located her, they went to her, they talked with her, and they asked her, what was your magic? What was your gift? She said, I didn't have any magic. I didn't have any gift or anything else other than the fact that despite what they said about them, I saw them differently. I tried to love them, and I tried to see them for who they truly were. And that's what we're really here talking about today. That we are here looking to see people as they truly are. And I heard the other day on the radio an interview with Tim Shriver, who is the son of Eunice Shriver, who founded Special Olympics. And it was a really interesting story that she told. He told in that story that his mother, about her founding Special Olympics and her impetus for doing all of that and everything. And he talked about a particular Special Olympics where their National Special Olympics game, where for the first time in their history, they had a sitting president to come and to attend the games. And it was President Clinton, and he came and he sat at a place up in the stadium, surrounded by his Secret Service and entourage and all of that. And he goes on to say how a photographer noticed some of the Special Olympics athletes that were standing over with, and this was, tell you how long ago, with, those single-use cameras, not cell phones, but single-use cameras. And they were pointing them at where President Clinton was sitting. But he noticed that they had the cameras turned backwards. And so he went over to them and said, well, if you all want to take a picture, then you're going to have to turn the camera around. And one of the young people said to him, well, they were looking through the viewfinder. He said, well, the thing of it is that when you turn it around, the viewfinder on the camera acts like binoculars or a telescope. And what it does is that it makes the picture, it makes what you see really big. And so now they could get a very clear picture, a very clear view of President Clinton if you just turn it around. And if we are to change the narrative in this community, we've got to turn things around. And I thought back on that evening in the library, how because some of the people's view was so narrowly focused on what they had heard on the news, they missed the fact of the young people who were still in the library, who were studying and working. They missed the fact of those young people in our community every day who were not causing trouble, who were about doing things, trying to make their lives better. It made me think about how if we take a different view, a broader view, we see people like Vern Meeslin, who last week with some of her colleagues from the Shelby County schools presented their writings in such a dramatic and outstanding way. When we take the broader view, it helps us to see people like at Bridges, Kristen, the young people that you all work with day in and day out about making a difference. It helps us to see the people right in this room, all of our young people who are here. None of us are perfect. None of us have everything on the wall. But when we broaden our view. And when we understand that indeed what it really means to say that we are unique and individualized expressions of God, we begin to change not only the narrative in this community, but the vibration. When we talk about the vibration, I'm not talking about some kind of airy-fairy kind of way. But what I'm talking about is that when we begin to look at other people, not with suspicion, not with distrust, but when we begin to look at people and see the assets that they are and what they have about them, it changes things. It changes how we respond. It changes how we act. We can then, instead of being scared to walk certain places and nervous about all of that, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt who ultimately we are and who everyone else is. It's about a different view. And so I say this in all sincerity and with all of the power that I can generate. I greet you.
I agree.
I bless you.
I bless you.
I see God.
I see God.